Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I'm Billy Embody. With me is Hayden Howerton, getting ready to preview SMU Clemson, this rematch of the ACC Championship. We dive into all of that and make our predictions for the game on this edition of the On the Pony Express podcast, presented by Northwest Insurance Agency, which starts right now.
When you clock in every day, there's always that chance that something can happen. You don't know when, where, or how, but accidents are inevitable. As a business owner, you don't want to be left holding the bag whether something happens to an employee or customer. General liability insurance covers everything from a slip or fall all the way down to a paper cut. At Northwest Insurance Agency, we will get you any necessary coverage that pertains to your field. So get covered under the sombrero by calling 855-88-75656 or visit us at nwagencies.com.
This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody.
1, 2, 3, let we go.
That is right. One of the games on the schedule that we've all been waiting for. It's SMU Clemson on Saturday, 2:30 p.m. Central Time, 3:30 Eastern out there. I'm still getting used to that. I'm going to get the extra hour, I guess, like everybody back home, but is going to be watching it at 2:30. We will be there on the ground at Hayden Howerton with boots ready to roll as the Mustangs do take on Clemson in this ACC Championship game rematch.
I think we've all had it circled on our calendar since this game got announced, that as part of the ACC schedule that we were going to make this trip out here. But then you add that extra layer to it with the ACC Championship rematch. Billy, going to Memorial Stadium, otherwise known as Death Valley to the Clemson faithful, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be an elite environment. I'm so jealous for these guys that they get to play in an atmosphere like this in Clemson, South Carolina. You've got ACC Network covering the game. But SMU up to this point, 4-2, 2-0 in ACC play. You're riding that 19-game conference winning streak, but there really haven't been any awe-inspiring games so far this season for SMU. You've handled business the last 2 times coming out of the bye, but now you have a whole other beast coming up. And let's talk about the Clemson Tigers, because I say beast, but they've run into some of the same issues SMU has so far this year. But ultimately, they are the 22-time ACC champ. They've won 8 out of the last 10. They're the gatekeepers of this conference, the gold standard of what it means to be successful in the league. All of the things that you would want your golden boys to be, the Clemson Tigers are. But let's talk about the history a little bit. They've played football a long time in South Carolina, 129 years to be exact, Billy. They joined the Southern Conference, where they won 6 conference championships, and then they were a founding member of the ACC prior to the 1953 season. They have 3 national championships, 7 college football playoff appearances, including 6 straight from 2015 to 2020, and then obviously last year in 2024 as well. But it hasn't always been easy in 2025. You start 1-3. You've got the losses to LSU, Georgia Tech, Syracuse, and your one win was a very close win against Troy. And Troy's a pretty good group of 5 team, or group of 6, but that doesn't help inspire a lot of confidence about this Clemson football team. They go into the bye. I think they've turned it around, but Eric said it earlier this week. They played the worst and the second worst team in the ACC in North Carolina and Boston College. They do have a lot of famous football alum. They've got Trevor Lawrence. They've got the Fridge, William Perry, part of the 85 Bears. You've got Dwight Clark, the receiver of the catch, Brian Dawkins, Weapon X, DeAndre Hopkins, Sammy Watkins, Eric McLean, and then you've got former South Carolina governor and U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley. Let's talk about Death Valley for a second. Frank Howard Field at Memorial Stadium, biggest stadium in the ACC, so that's going to be a spectacle for all of us. And there's some cool traditions. You've got Howard's Rock. We're going to watch the most exciting 25 seconds of college football as the team touches the rock, runs down the hill. Maybe I'll clock Dabo's 40 time down there as he takes that very seriously. But even around campus, they've got the graveyard, which is the headstones by their practice field representing the Tigers' road wins against ranked football teams. And look, I don't know what's going to happen on Saturday from a result perspective. I think it's up in the air. We'll get to our predictions here in a little bit. one thing I do know, they're going to rush the field no matter what. Win or lose, they do it after every single game. But looking back at the one previous meeting is the ACC Championship. And as much as we want to forget that first ACC Championship appearance for SMU, it was one of the all-time ACC Championship games. Ended in a 34-31 Clemson victory on a last-second field goal of a lifetime. And this is the very first of hopefully many on-campus meeting between the two schools.
It is a opportunity for SMU to obviously right a lot of wrongs from this past meeting with them in Charlotte, but it's also a chance for SMU to kind of cement itself as a school that is not to be messed with as far as where they're at in the college football world. Because as much as SMU has announced itself over the last 2 years, it is a what have you done for me lately type of sport. Unfortunately, that's where it is. And SMU, the way they've played this year, is going to have people so far obviously doubting SMU. The line here says it all. 9.5 points at least the time of us recording this. SMU has got a chance though to kind of silence all of that and become one of the latest teams to win in Death Valley, because it's not a place that has necessarily lit the world on fire lately when it comes to big Power 4 opponents coming in there. And so SMU shouldn't be anticipated, but they shouldn't be intimidated about this environment, but they should respect this environment. And I think that's the thing that if I'm SMU, I'm kind of honing in on. Gas the guys up. We can do this. We've shown what we can do in these big time games and big time moments already against Clemson with the comeback last year. Different team this year, different team for Clemson, but there should be no question internally about if SMU can do it. And we're going to get to find out what they face when they do get into Death Valley on Saturday afternoon. But first, you got to jet over to Clemson. There's only one way to go there, and that would be with our friends at Status Jet. Make sure you work with Status Jet to get a discount on a round-trip flight. When you mention On the Pony Express, it's a tough place to get to. You can still make that last-minute call, cancel all your plane, hotel reservations, go in and out the day of. Work with our friends at Status Jet for the trip of a lifetime to see SMU Clemson, and make sure you mention On the Pony Express and get a discount on that round trip flight today when you book with Status Jet. This offense, one-dimensional, in my opinion. But
it's unfortunate because I've played in this scheme. It felt very balanced when I played in this scheme. You've got Garrett Riley as the offensive coordinator. He likes to air this thing out, but if you've got good enough running backs and offensive line, like they did with Phil Maffa last year, they come downhill. But I think they're going to try to throw the ball first. I think with what they have at quarterback in last year, with Cade coming back, they definitely anticipated having a pass-heavy offense. But let's look at them. 52nd overall offense in terms of yardage at 408 yards a game. 80th scoring offense, only scoring about 26.2, which is something that I've got highlighted. Passing offense, they're 25th in the country at 278 yards a game, a little more than 7.5 yards per attempt. Only 11 touchdowns for Cade Klubnik so far. You did have a little trick play against North Carolina where a receiver threw a touchdown, but 6 picks with 5 of those by Klubnik. Rushing, I expected them to be a good rushing team coming into this year, but they're coming in at 97th. 130 yards a game, 8 touchdowns on the ground. It's really surprising to me. But as far as sacks allowed, they are pretty elite. They've only given up 7. It's a little more than 1 a game. Their offensive line is very talented and is a big reason on why I thought they would be so good overall this year. Because I touched a little bit on Cade Klubnik, and the senior quarterback from Austin Westlake was getting Heisman prep before this year. I mean, in 2024, he was a monster. But in 2025, he's only hovering around, 1,500 yards. He had 3,000 going into the ACC Championship. And then he doesn't get much volume. He's only throwing the ball 30 times a game, with the exception of that Syracuse game where they're playing from behind. He did throw the ball 60 times in that one. But you look at his efficiency, his quarterback rating, he's kind of middle of the pack for this college football landscape. 66th in total quarterback rating. It was something that I know the Clemson faithful are shocked about. I personally am shocked about. I was expecting more from Cade Klubnik, but that scares me because SMU typically has allowed these struggling quarterbacks to have career days against them. So it's going to be something that we're going to have to prep for 2024 Cade Klubnik because he's got it in him. But their leading rusher, Adam Randall, it's his first year as the full-time running back for the Tigers. He moved over from wide receiver. He was that kick returner in the 2024 ACC Championship game who set up that last second field goal. So he's explosive. We're going to have to watch him. They've got Bryant Wesco Jr., freshman All-American in 2024, 17.3 yards per catch last year. He's matched that so far this year. So he's having another really nice season, regardless of what Cade Klubnik has done so far. He's got 537 yards through 6 games. He's on pace for 1,000 yards this year. And he's just an explosive playmaker. He's one of those guys, when I talked about Stanford not having an elite receiver, well, guess what? Clemson's got Bryant Wesco Jr. And then let's talk about their offensive line. I think there's a lot of football that's been played on this Clemson offensive line. You've got Blake Miller. You've got Tristan Lay. Both of these guys have started almost 5,000 snaps combined in their career. And they're probably going to pass that mark by the end of the year. But they've been battling some injuries. Lay he's missed the last 2 games, and he only really played 22 snaps against Boston College. He has an ankle injury. It's something that we're going to have to take advantage of if he's not out there from our defensive line perspective. But he's also been replaced by true freshman Braden Jacobs. He's the son of the New York Giants all-time rushing touchdown leader. So just something to watch for this Clemson offense. They definitely have the pieces to put it together to be a really good offense, but have only been one-dimensional, and they're really leaning pass-heavy right now. Could be something that plays in this top 30 rushing defense SMU's hands if they make Clemson truly one-dimensional and allow Scott Simons to draw some stuff up.
And it's crazy kind of how this world of college football works is, now we're covering, the ACC. It's still relatively new to us, but you see guys that you're familiar with from the high school ranks. Tristan Lee was a guy I covered his entire recruitment, start to finish, basically, when he picked up his early offers all the way through him becoming a blue chip prospect and ending up at Clemson. And funny enough, the kind of the way he did end up at Clemson is former LSU offensive line coach who was recruiting him at the time met him during COVID and recruited him. And then on top of that, gave him like exclusive LSU gear and like the stuff that like a Nike school just goes, whoa, that you could only get if you're a coach. So just literally sent the pictures of him in it and it was over. That's not why he ended up with Clemson. They did a good job recruiting him, but just always some funny stories there. But Tristan Lee, really good dude. It sucks that, he's going through what he's going through injury wise, but Braden Jacobs is also somebody that I know wrote a story on him early in his recruitment as things picked up. So I saw him at a camp as he, went through the recruiting process, and he was just maybe going into his sophomore year. Big kid, and there was Brandon Jacobs, right there with him. It was pretty surreal to see that unfold. But of course, locally, we know Bryant Wesco as well. He's somebody that, I think he was going into his junior year. He hadn't broken out just yet. I think I have this timing right. I saw him at a camp, wrote a story. Hey, keep an eye on this guy. This is somebody that SMU should be all over. They didn't end up being all over him, and they were just a little late there getting into the mix to try and get him. But who's to say at that time if they would have gotten him? But Clemson does a really good job recruiting the state of Texas is another point that I wanted to make. Obviously, they've got Cade. I think when you look at this matchup, the Cade Klubnik versus Kevin Jennings has nothing to do with how the matchup goes, but it is one of the storylines I'm most intrigued about. Which quarterback comes out of this game at least feeling like they are the man and that they've led their team to a win. I asked Kevin about the pressure of being a Texas high school football quarterback and playing at the high levels that he has. And of course, Cade's experienced that too. These are guys that for a long time now have dealt with expectations. Even though Kevin was flying under the radar, Kevin's first start was in the AAC Championship game. Like college, Kevin has certainly been in it ever since he entered the mix as a starter with high expectations. And that's kind of the world he's lived in. But Cade, very much the blue chip guy who's worn all of those expectations very well and navigated the process, stuck it out. And so for SMU, they've got to get after him. He's a little hobbled. They've got to find a way to get after the quarterback. And, I don't know if Akil Washington is going to, somehow be ready to go for this game. but the pass rushers SMU has have to get home, have to get pressure on the quarterback. And, I think for this game, you keep doing what you're doing and you hope that all the things that you've been working on kind of come together now and you see them break through.
And I've seen enough so far with this defense, at least from a defensive line and linebacker standpoint, to think that they are going to be able to contain Cade. They're going to be able to contain the run game, where I'm not sure, and I can't really point to just the Tristan Lee injury on why Clemson's offensive line hasn't just become road graders this year, because you look at Blake Miller, and Blake Miller is a guy that before the season was also getting first round, predictions. So I look at this Clemson offensive line, and they're big, they're well coached, they're all the things you would want a top offensive line unit to be. And I'm probably saying that SMU's defensive line is poised to have a big night. Turbo has really turned it on the last couple weeks. I mean, I've shown some film room clips of him. You've seen him dominate some of these dudes, and it just takes one play to spark your team. You look at a guy that I'll talk about here in a second, TJ Parker, and the strip sack against SMU last year kind of propelled Clemson to that huge first half where the lead looked insurmountable. SMU obviously came back, but you have to wonder what would have happened if that strip sack didn't occur. Would SMU have even just driven down the field and kicked a field goal? We're talking about a completely different game. We're talking about a 10-point swing because they scored a touchdown right after that. So it takes one play from the defensive line to change the trajectory of this game. And I think we might be primed to do that. We will see. I know that Garrett Riley is a good offensive coordinator, regardless of what the stats are saying about him. He does a good job of drawing stuff up. He really works well with the quarterbacks. Cade is a smart kid, too. He's going to be able, if he can't run the ball, they are going to be dialed in with the green dot of helping him of, hey, here's where the protections need to slide to. Here's where we need to make adjustments. They're going to be ready to go. I mean, let's not confuse this. I mean, Dabo is an elite head coach at this level and will have this quarterback and offense primed that if they can execute, will look like the old Clemson that we're all used to.
Yeah, and all it takes is one play to make a game-changing play. And for SMU's defensive line, they need it. They need it this week. They need to change this momentum in this game. And if you look back at the blueprint from last year, that Louisville game is how to do it. And so they've got to find a way to replicate some of that this weekend at Clemson. And look, when you're looking for a new vehicle, we know it only takes one call. Our friends at the Thomas Auto Group head up 75 in McKinney to visit any of their 4 dealerships, Ford, Subaru, Volkswagen, and Mitsubishi. Whether you need to get your car serviced, they've got a great service department. And, of course, they've also got a collision center if you need to go down that route as well. The Thomas Auto Group, proud SMU alum, Brandon Thomas, is just stoked to watch this one. And, of course, for SMU fans, they're going to give you that extra treatment, which is why when you mention on the Pony Express, you get an employee pricing deal on new and pre-owned vehicles with the Thomas Auto Group. So appreciate their support of On the Pony Express. And look, load up this SMU, rushing attack, get the big trucks out ready to roll. Establishing the run is key on this Clemson defense, but it's not going to come easy, as it's once again one of the better run defenses in the country, like SMU saw last week against Stanford.
One of the better run defenses, one of the better coordinators in the country. Yep. Tom Allen, we met him last year in the college football playoff when he was the Penn State defensive coordinator. They run a 4-2-5, as we've seen many times so far this year. It's just, you see a lot of the nickel stuff. And for good reason, they've got some really good defensive linemen. They want to get as many of those guys out there as possible. But total defense, they're not world beaters. They're 38th in the country, 322 yards per game. They're only giving up 18.5 points per game, which is 27th in the country. Passing defense, they do show a little bit of vulnerability. They're 65th, 217.5 yards per game, well under Kevin's average. But it could be something that, hey, Kevin, we might need to lean on your arm a little bit this week because the rushing defense is very good. 24th now after last week. They were like 32nd, 33rd after that Boston College game. They just shut them down. Fell all the way to 104 yards per game on the ground. As we know, Billy, running the football is key for this SMU offense because Clemson is essentially very stout. I mean, we'll get to their impact players here in a second, but I think 4 of their best 5 players defensively are starting defensive linemen. They have 16 sacks on the year. They have the quickest time to pressure in the country. SMU's offense is second, by the way, at slowest time to pressure. So this offensive line is doing a pretty good job. It's going to be a huge battle in the trenches. And I'm not just saying that because I played offensive line,
Yeah.
but you look at TJ Parker, the strip sack we talked about, number 1 graded defensive starter with an 82.4 grade on PFF, 2 sacks on the year, 16 pressures. The 2 sacks I probably credit to a lot of running back help, the slide going that direction a lot this year. He has a lot of production with the 16 pressures, but they're countering him with some of the scheme things that they've done. And I would expect SMU to do the same thing. I mean, he's 6'3", 260, lean, potential top 5 draft pick, like Abdul Carter was last year. Reminds me a lot of him on tape. You pair that with Peter Woods, who you look at his height and weight, 6'3", 310. He's solid. Oh, he's probably more of a run stuffer. Yes, he can do that. He can rush the passer too. I mean, you just meet some of these freaks, and Peter Woods is one of them too. He is way quicker than he looks. He's one of those guys that I don't think it's possible to get lulled to sleep, because that first third down, he's going to have his ears pinned back. Both of those guys are potential first rounders in 2027 when they become eligible. I can go down the list and name probably most of their starters and say that these are key impact players defensively, but they're way more talented than their statistical ranking shows. I just think there's a disconnect some year. You're in your first year under Coach Tom Allen, but this should be a top 10 defense with the talent they have on the field and behind the headset.
Yeah, this Clemson defense is just outstanding. I mean, they really, for the most part, have not been the reason why this Clemson team is in the position that it's in. And I think that's worth noting here, that as SMU goes into this environment, goes into this, matchup, that Clemson's defense is good. They're solid. They're not any sort of issue when it comes to the overall trajectory of this Clemson team. LSU, with all the talent they have, even though they've been poor relative to expectations offensively, they were able to bottle them up. They're still a talented offense from a personnel perspective. You look at what they've been able to do against some of these other teams. They've been fine. They're playing somewhat winning football in a sense. They're not just getting killed in certain areas. So it's on SMU to find out how to expose them a little bit more here, though, and dial up some great play calls, dial up some things where you can get the athleticism of Kevin Jennings, I think, to take advantage of some of it. And the thing that I really am looking forward to seeing, or, post game, who knows, maybe not looking forward to seeing, is how does this offense start? And I know we're hammering that this week, but we saw when you play a well-coached, experienced team from a standpoint of how to win, what happens when you don't start fast last year in the ACC Championship game. Now, granted, SMU fought all the way back and got back to that point, and this Clemson team is very different. But man, if you're an SMU player, you've got to come out and take this one by the balls and really just you got to get after it. This is not a game where you can let Clemson dictate terms early on, or else it's not going to be a fun day for SMU. I mean, that's not the way to play this game and go into Death Valley and hope that you're going to be able to find a way to just kind of shock the world here. I mean, what do you want to do, Hayden? You want to be eating on Sunday at Mignon and having that free dessert up there in Plano. Nick Nator, former SMU offensive lineman, and his family have been dishing out the great food up there in Plano. And when you see the Mustangs win on Saturday, you head up to Mignon and you mention On the Pony Express and you get your free dessert, whether it be for brunch or dinner at Mignon in Plano. So it's right up Preston Road there, just south of HEB. Is a great, great environment there. Got the lake, the weather's cooling down. This is the perfect time of year to enjoy some time on that patio. So make your reservation on Open Table today with our friends at Mignon in Plano.
Let's get to the keys to the ball game, Billy. And while there are probably 50 things that could help us win, I'm going to try to keep it simple here. You just talked about it. You have to score first. This cannot be the 4th game in a row that you go 3 and out. You have to play from ahead. And I think about that Louisville game in 2024. You drive the field, you put together a serious, 7 or 8 play drive, and you score a touchdown. And like that, you had life in the team of, all right, we can do this. We can play with these guys. And regardless of how the next couple quarters went, and defense just absolutely took over late in that game, especially on the defensive line front. That inspired confidence in the offense. It allowed Kevin to really open up both the pass and the run game as Kevin ripped that, 50-something yard rushing touchdown, which was awesome. But I think you have to score first. I think you have to play a cleaner game than Clemson. Clemson is committing less than 5 penalties per game right now. They're one of the top teams in the country at that. SMU early in the season was one of the worst. But SMU has trended in the right direction since those early non-conference games. Kevin had no turnovers last week. So I think if you win the turnover battle and the penalty battle, that will help. And like I just talked about, the battle of this game is going to come down to the trenches, man. It's going to come down to both sides, the RO line versus their D line, and can our D line make a difference in this game? And finally, my last couple keys, you got to hit the big plays. You only had 7 explosives against Stanford. I think 12 plus wins us this game. And I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm undecided if I want to make this an official key to the game. I just think you got to get lucky somewhere. I think you got to get a defense, maybe a special teams touchdown, kind of get a big swing there. And who knows? The ball's shaped weird ways. You're playing on the road. Run game and defense typically travels. That hasn't been exceptional to start the year, but then you did it against Louisville. So I think if you hit these keys to the game, Billy, even if we hit 3 of them, I think we'll be in great shape.
Yeah, I'm all over the place on this game. I'll be honest with you. I mean, part of me is like wants to take the whole TCU approach from last year, where it's like, all right, guys, you got to prove it to me or whatever. That's how I approached last year's game against TCU, knowing full well that I really thought, like in my heart of hearts and what I had seen from Kevin Jennings, like SMU was going to be able to put everything bad that had happened the first 3 weeks behind them and go and win a football game. And I don't know that this week. I don't feel like that as far as like this, like, man, kudos, Rhett made the change. Things are going to be fine. SMU's going to beat TCU, but I need to see it. So I'm just picking against them. This game, it really feels like to me, this is a kind of it's not a get right game. Don't get me wrong. Like, not a get right game, but SMU has needed a game where now that they've gotten these past 2 weeks of, okay, winning, getting things done, checking things off, now you need the juices to flow again. And after all those, juices getting out there and, over emotion of the Baylor game losing, and maybe that was a 2-week hangover. I mean, maybe it was. And who could blame them for losing that type of an emotional game and the fallout from it? And that's why they didn't come out well against TCU and kind of fell behind and were playing from catch up. This is not the same Clemson team that SMU played in Charlotte. I mean, it's just not. They're not performing at the same level. There is all of that. I mean, last year, people were kind of talking about Clemson like they needed help to obviously get to Charlotte, and things went their way with Syracuse helping them out. But this year, there's very little help. They need so much help for things to go their way that it just seems like for me that there's so much pressure on this Clemson team. I don't know if they're going to pull out of it. I really don't. And meanwhile, this SMU team, I feel like the pressure is cooled. No one's expecting them to go in there and win. Vegas has it as a 9.5-point game. And I don't know, when SMU's backs are against the wall, like in conference play, they've just found a way. And I know that doesn't stand the test of, well, they didn't against Baylor, against TCU. Those aren't conference games. I don't know what Rhett Lashley and the nutrition staff sprinkle over the food during conference play, but it's worked out pretty damn well over the last few years. So I don't know what they brought back from New Orleans in November 2022. I don't know what different Cajun seasoning is now up in Flanagan, but whatever they figured out right after that, that they started pouring over the food, it's worked out in conference play. And I'll ride with the winning streak, in the regular season. I know there's all sorts of qualifiers now, but like, I'm going to go with SMU. I do think it's lower scoring. I think that's more because of Clemson's offense. I know everybody wants to sit there and say, as talented as that group is, like, I don't think this is going to be a shootout. I feel like it's almost a game of two teams that just they don't seem like they're very good right now. And I don't know if either team is going to execute enough to hit that 30-point mark. I'm going to go 27-23 SMU.
Okay.
So
look, all signs are pointing to another Clemson win. It's the easy pick. Everybody's going to pick
easy.
them.
It's super easy to pick Clemson, and everybody would be like, well, whatever. But
yeah. But look, in 5 of the 6 games this year, SMU has shown improvement. So I guess that would be 4 of the 5 games. But either way, Clemson is a very talented and well-coached football team. They have not shown it this year. SMU is a talented and well-coached football team who has not shown it this year. But Rhett Lashlee teams excel at avenging losses. We talked about the streak. SMU's last conference loss was when Tulane boat raced us in 22. I mean, that was an ass kicking.
Yeah.
And the next year, you get payback. You go back there, you win an AAC title on the road in 2023. You run out of time against TCU. Boston College gets the betterment of you in Boston. And then in 2024, you beat both of them at home. In 2024, SMU gives up the lead to Clemson that seems insurmountable. SMU gets all the momentum back on their side somehow. I mean, that stadium was dead. I mean, if I wasn't a diehard and didn't fly all the way out there, I probably would have left at halftime. But SMU did the improbable. They came back. They made it a game. And I think they're going to continue that streak of where they left off in Charlotte. And so just in my gut, I feel a payback brewing. If anything else, regardless of what's on the field, man, I just feel it in my gut. I don't know what it is about these Rhett Lashlee coach teams following a loss to the same team you're getting ready to play. But they have to start fast. They have to win in the trenches. You've got to get lucky in a couple of places. I mean, it's going to be hard. There's going to be lots of adversity. I actually have both teams hitting the over 30 just because I like following that Rhett Lashlee over 30-point mark. So I got SMU 34, Clemson 30. And I wrote it in stone on our show with Eric McLean earlier this week. So I couldn't change that from that point.
I think to kind of close out here, it really is a game that you feel like, okay, SMU and Clemson are two teams that just have not had the seasons that they've wanted to have. But how bad can some of these things really show themselves to be? Like the Clemson offense has not been good against any sort of team with a pulse. And I say team because it is a team game. Boston College, UNC, they don't have a pulse. SMU's defense, you can talk about how bad they have been defending the pass. That is fine, but they've still got some of that team element to them. You know,
watch
look at
the film room.
Yeah.
Watch Alex Kilgore and how excited he was for
Yeah.
Turbo sack. That is a defense that cares, man.
Yes.
UNC and Boston College, they're checked out.
Yes, exactly. Like you can't compare SMU's defense, which has the worst pass defense in the country, don't get me wrong, but you can't compare those passing those stats to the situations Boston College and UNC are in right now. And Clemson got right. They got above 30 points. Everything was gravy, all these things. But man, you're just in a different world playing a little bit of that SMU roster. And I'm not even saying that like, oh, SMU is a different animal, a different beast or whatever, you know, Clemson better watch out. No, it's just a talent level that is different. Things just haven't gone their way this year for a multitude of reasons. And some of them are correctable though. And they've been working on correcting them, and they've got to find ways to finish more plays. And maybe this is a, you know, maybe this isn't the Kevin Jennings legacy game that, you know, I was early in the week. I was like, maybe this is Kevin Jennings legacy game. Maybe it's the Scott Simons legacy game. You know what I mean? And the evolution of an SMU team that doesn't necessarily need to always hit every 30-point mark. But man, they could really use Scott Simons dialing something up really nice all game long up at Clemson this weekend. And, you know, you keep them under 30 points, you know, you definitely give yourself a better chance to win. There's no doubt about that. If they hit 30, that's a hard one for me to see SMU winning this week, at least. And that's partly because Clemson's offense has just not been very good against decent competition.
One thing I'll say about expectations is when Clemson has everything in front of them, they are one of the best teams in football. The second that something starts to feel out of reach, I think about that game against South Carolina, they were dead in the water.
Yep.
I mean, they looked like they had nothing to play for. It was over. I mean, so they're sitting here in ACC play with 2 losses already. If it starts to get bad, this could be one that SMU runs away with it.
And we're trying not to wish cast, but it's also the reality of this. And Rhett has hammered this home this year, and he's been right. This is not last year's team on either side of the ball or either side of the field, whether it be Clemson, whether it be SMU. And so Dabo's world that he's lived in it, and it's been great for the most part, and they've been unbelievable, and kudos to them for everything they've done. But you've also got to sit there and really think, okay, like Hayden said, is this adversity just going to be too much for them this year? And they kind of need to hit a reset and see where things go from here. This will be a game that tells a lot about that for Clemson. And if SMU goes in there and gets a win, which, I mean, the other piece of this, and this is more of like a watching SMU do its thing as a program here. SMU needs to go out and win this game because other teams are going into Clemson as well, and they're winning. Yeah. They're just like Georgia Tech is a very good team. They beat them at home. That's fine. Syracuse was a totally different team with Steve Angeli at quarterback. They were cooking offensively. They made that Clemson defense look pretty silly, but it also wasn't this runaway thing. You've got to go in there and win. It's like, I don't want to say it's easy. Everybody can do it at this point, but man, Clemson is just not good at home right now. So go out and take advantage of that and go win a football game.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
There's just not this. If SMU wins on Saturday, this is not the biggest game SMU's ever won. Like I said last year before the ACC Championship,
right? It's different.
This is just a solid. It would be, if it goes our way, a solid road win, and then you move on to the next week. It's not something that I think is just going to absolutely make the entire season. It's just, all right, this is a very good opponent historically on the road in a tough environment that you go win. All right, it probably has the same level of street cred as that Louisville game. Yep. I mean, I don't want to discredit Clemson and the job that Dabo Swinney has done.
Yeah. That's not what this is about. This is this team. This team.
This is about 2025, not 2019.
Yeah. So with that, Hayden, it's going to be a blast to see you guys there in Clemson on Saturday. We're looking forward to seeing everybody there. 3:30 Eastern for us. That'll be on the ground there. 2:30 Central for everybody back in Dallas. We'll be there to cover it all at ontheponyexpress.com. So make sure you subscribe for $1 for your first week. Make it the Clemson week. And let's ride into this one on the message board and the live chat during the game. And hope you guys who are making it there enjoy this one. It's one of the best atmospheres in college football. And SMU will be playing in it. So really excited about that. And for Hayden Howerton, I'm Billy Embody. We appreciate you guys listening to our SMU Clemson preview at On the Pony Express. Hope you guys enjoy it. And we'll catch you guys post-game after SMU faces off against Clemson. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU3 and on Instagram at On3SMU. And keep it locked to OnThePonyExpress.com for more coverage.